is, that's who you are, and if that's how you identify yourself as your gender, then who am I to say, that is incorrect or not?
Representative Lister.
Well, words mean things. Statutes mean things, obviously. And so in order to remove ambiguity, we should be clear in what the definitions of words are. Now, there isn't a statute, and that might be your definition, but that might not be the definition of voters. So I think it's incumbent upon us, and you as the bill author, if we're gonna move forward with this, to define the terms as they are used, the language that you're using. So Madam Chair, I would encourage, I just see a lot of problems with this, as with abortion, as it is being used in the states to expand abortion. And because of the ambiguity, I would encourage members to vote against this.
Thank you, Representative Lister. And I would just note also that there are a lot of terms that are used in our statutes that we don't specifically define, that are used by their common definitions. The Supreme Court frequently goes to dictionaries. I've had that happen in numerous cases of mine where they look up dictionary definitions because we don't simply define every single word that we have in our statutes. With that, I believe Representative Kerr has a question.
Yes, and I don't think the mics are working, so doing this is probably not going to help.
Oh, yeah, I'm really.
Okay. I don't have an answer to that because that's something else, but that triggered the fact that when I went to Brazil, they defined black as like 100 different shades of black. So there are just some words that will always have ambiguity, whether we want to create something concrete to define it. And so I don't even think that that's a possibility to by us defining it doesn't mean that ambiguity doesn't exist around certain words. And so I just wanted to put that out there. The reason why I wanted to ask the question was that I really appreciate that the ERA and Representative Kunesh-Podein that you're bringing this forward. I really appreciate that robust conversation that Representative Scott has put forward around this. I feel like maybe this is a larger discussion that we have to have in another place because this is a really complex situation. And then I feel like when we talk about women's rights, and now we're talking about the rights of unborn children, that we're asking people to have a false sense of choice, right? We're saying, well, if you choose women that are alive, you're not choosing women that aren't born. And then, to me, that's a false sense of choice, and they shouldn't be even put into the same conversation. It's like when an African American is talking about the rights and the systemic oppression they face. It's as if we're always asking people to have a race to the bottom, right? And then we want Asian people to say, well, what about us? We're oppressed, but our oppression looks different. And then we say, what about indigenous people? And so we almost make people fight for this limited thing in which we give them this false sense of like, if you choose this, you're not choosing people, which is why I choose Black Lives Matter, because I know that that house is on fire, not mine, even though I have issues I'm dealing with. And so to ask me to have to choose in certain things, I think gives us a really wrong choice, a false choice of what it is that we should be doing right here. And what we have in front of us is an issue that impacts women who do not have equal rights. They exist right now, and the issue is pressing, and it's in front of us, and it's telling us that something needs to be done about this right now. And when we bring in other things that we think could potentially happen, we confuse the issue that our system is built on a system in which it's had centuries of systems of oppression built in against women and people of color and people who are poor, and that for us now to say, well, let's bring these other things in, which are very legitimate concerns, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate at all. So what I'm saying is that that's probably not the right conversation to be having today, and that if we care that much, then we should look at all the different systems in which create the fact that somebody may have to consider an abortion. And that's not a conversation potentially for today. That I think that this bill is really important as its own to stand up. And if we all decide that we're standing on the side of justice, that we remember that if we want to change something, we can't operate and band-aid what's going on now. We have to dismantle the systems of oppression that exist right now that was created, that one specific group of people always get to benefit. And we know what that group of people is right now. And so this issue is in front of us. This is the issue that we should be voting on. And this is what we have to do in order to dismantle systems and rebuild them. And so if we're on the side of justice, we should remember what we're either choosing to uphold in the systems that oppress certain groups of people, or what it is that we're choosing to dismantle so we can rebuild this. And so I didn't have as much of a question, but more of just that I feel really passionate about this and I needed to say something. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kerr. Chair Conrad. Go ahead and follow that up.
Yeah, thanks. I know that in committee we don't address germaneness, but on the House floor we do. Let's look at the language. Shall the Minnesota Constitution be amended to provide that that. Yeah, I was just floored that he had the legal right to take my mother's paycheck, go cash it, and keep it. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to stop. Yeah, that they have the same equal protection. And so I'm very much in favor of this. My mother passed away a couple of years ago, and at the very end, was disappointed that Minnesota had not passed the ERA on the state level.
Thank you, Chair. And I would just say not too long ago myself, I was taking my children into a doctor's appointment, and I was the insurance carrier for our family, and the medical provider insisted that I put their father first because it was the male of the household instead of me who was the carrier of the insurance program. So it's still happening, not even in that so distant of the past. Let's see, Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Gunstein, well, this may sound pretty nice and straightforward, this is about, male or female. They had this double slippery slope, when we determine how to define gender. So my question, question for, Representative,
Go ahead.
Representative, why select the word gender and not just sex? To just not discriminate based on sex, like full federal ERA.
Go ahead, Representative. I think we have this question.
Well, I guess I don't understand why folks are getting all bent out of shape on a word, sex or gender. I think we, just as Chair Mahler explained, there are words that we implicitly understand. And I don't know when you hear that word gender, if it confuses you with the word sex. But gender, again, in this day and age, I kind of think it's like we're bringing everybody up to date on the current verbiage, the inclusive verbiage around folks who identify in so many different ways. Not everybody identifies through sex, and I think historically sex meant either male or female. Well, in this day and age, and you know there are many people that identify in different ways. And rather than be exclusive or inclusive, we're trying to be inclusive of everyone in this. You know, I think we've said time and time again that this is not just something to support women or give women equal rights, but it also has equal rights around men as well, and any of those folks that identify in different ways. And so the use of the word gender is the contemporary word for sex, and I really think that if we all look at it, you know, gender means sex, sex means gender, and there are many other words if we looked up in the encyclopedia for synonyms that we would find other words that we would want to use. But for this, we chose the word gender.
So I guess, your first speaker came up and was talking about equal rights for women. Clearly, that is sex, and my sex is male. But I guess I'm just not clear as to why you need to go with gender. If this is an equal rights, equal rights for women, as stated by your first speaker, why not just put sex there?
Representative, or it looks like one of your testifiers might have a response to that. Yeah.
Well, before they do, I guess I'm just confused why you're hung up on a word such as gender and what big of a difference it makes. But, you know, men, you know, this bill, if this amendment goes into our Constitution, men will also benefit from the principle of gender equity, especially when it comes to men and anybody in Minnesota, because when it comes to their private lives and their roles in families, their role in society, we don't need to define whether you are a male or a female just as, your member said, why should we have to identify in a political way? There's no need to identify. So gender is an all-inclusive, encompassing word that includes everyone in our society.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. You know, I look at this, and you know, I look at the abortion issue, and it's like if this the conversation we have today, well, this is part of it as well. The abortion issue is part of this conversation as well. People want to distance themselves from it. If this is an LGBTQ issue, then because this has also been an LGBTQ issue is what you're saying then when you're using gender and you're using people identifying other than male or female. So with that being said, you know, I don't agree with that agenda. Doesn't mean that that all people don't have human rights, because we all do. And I've protected those for years. I've protected those for years. So to have someone bringing legislation forward of an agenda that is other than how it's presented, you know, I don't really agree with that. To have moral issues forced on me or anyone else who do not agree with the verbiage of this. To have the moral issues of abortion. So, you know, words do matter on how you put things in statute, because an and or an or in certain places, or a shall or a must in certain places in statute mean a heck of a lot different. A heck of a lot different meaning. And I've dealt with that for years in the courts. I've dealt with that for years in cases. So when you put gender in the bill, it means, it has meaning. It has definition. So this, to me, I'm looking at this, and this is not a bill that is solely approaching equal rights for women, as was stated.
So, Representative, if you want to respond, or one of your testifiers might want to respond to that, what would you prefer?
I would like to respond first, and then if one of them would like to. Go ahead. So I don't even know where to begin with this. The word gender is all-inclusive of everyone. The intention of this bill, if you look at it historically, for over 100 years, women have been asking for this to go into our Constitution in order to be assured of equal pay, equal opportunity, the ability to make their own choices in their own lives without somebody else telling them yes, no. I'm going to take your paycheck and do what I want with it. I'm going to take your children and do what I want with them. This has nothing to do, this bill has nothing to do with abortion. This has nothing to do with any LGBTQ issues. We all know that you can take any piece of legislation and twist it the way you want it to be. This bill is purely asking for the opportunity to put onto our ballot for the people of Minnesota, not for us to decide, but for the people of Minnesota to decide whether to add the words to provide equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied on account of gender. And that means not just if you identify as a male, or not just if you just identify as a female. However you identify yourself, we look at you and you are equal under the law in every opportunity that is available to you. Now, if states have taken this in the past and used it to whatever advantage when it comes to the abortion laws, that's a separate issue. If If Minnesota needs to go to legislation around that, you folks are more than free to create your own legislation on that. If you want something on the ballot that says you don't have to identify for a political party, go ahead and do that. That's what you can do as a legislator. But we're not here today. This bill does not address those issues because all we are asking is for equality under the law for whoever you are. And if you want to take it and spin it any way you can, you sure can. But that's not what this is. We are looking for an amendment to add language for equality under the law. And it's for the people of Minnesota to decide, not for the legislators.
So, members, I just want to say one thing here. We are not getting into we're not doing questions as much anymore now. And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from the audience because I haven't opened that up to the audience yet. And if you want to have a brief response, you can, but just to remind the members here, I'd like to keep this to questions now. We're getting close on time, and I know several of you still have questions, and I want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to ask those questions too. So you can briefly respond, Mr. Russell, or Representative.
Either way is fine. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. You know, I've got concerns from the Minnesota Family Council, MCCL. They're seeing something in here that maybe a lot of other people aren't seeing, but it raises very, very great concerns with these two groups. And so it makes concerns in my mind as well. So, with that being said, would you consider changing gender, since we don't have a definition, anybody's in statute for it, changing gender to sex? Because that would clean it up, that would make it very clear what this is for.
Representative.
No, I would not.
Okay, let's go ahead and open it up to the audience. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to testify? Okay, why don't we start, I'm seeing, can you keep your hands up just so we have an idea? Yep, so we have 4 people. I believe the woman in the necklace here had mentioned that you were interested in testifying before, so why don't you come forward first? And I think I see some other folks too, I gotcha. All right, come on forward, please. Welcome, and please go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning, my name is Kathy Burkett, and actually I'm wondering, I have my own testimony, but I was contacted because there are a couple of others that were not able to come and they forwarded their testimony. Can I read that, please?
You can, Ms. Burkett, but I think we can try to keep it to about 2 minutes. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Oops. I forgot my phone. No, I got it. Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's
I
all right.
haven't done this before, so thank you.
It's all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my name again is Kathy Burkett, and I'm going to read this on behalf of Julie Quist with the Child Protection League. This constitutional amendment is a fraud. It isn't an equal rights amendment. It's a gender spectrum equality amendment. This is the most anti-woman legislation ever seen. This bill is male domination of women at its ultimate worst. Men are now dominating women and girls in women's sports. Girls and women are now forced to shower with men and have their personal privacy violated in bathrooms and locker rooms. Shall not be abridged in law. Covers the spectrum of 87 genders in marriage, family, school, business, and sports. For the sake of girls and women's rights, vote no. Thank you. And then I also have one from Barb Anderson, and she says, so sorry she couldn't make it down here due to the bad weather and bad roads. So here's her testimony. My name is Barb Anderson with the Child Protection League, and I am testifying in opposition to HF13. All across the state, an aggressive gender ideology is already confusing children and their families by distorting language and the meaning of gender. Gender has become an elastic term that can mean any kind of identity depending on how you feel at any given time. 2 years ago, Robin McHillen, a gender equality trainer, came to our school district to teach our staff about gender equality. Parents were shocked at what she considered to be gender options. Ms. McHillen gave a fast recitation of the following types of gender choices deserving of equality: straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, two-spirit, same-gender, loving, pansexual, flexsexual, not straight, not labeling, straightish, straight so far, straight without obstacles, straight but stuff happens, gender bending, bi-gender, pangender, agender or agender, asexual, and other, so many options. This is absolute nonsense. Equality under the law for made-up genders and enshrine this in our Minnesota Constitution, this would give full government legitimacy to the entire racial gender spectrum, radical gender spectrum. Personally, as a woman and a former teacher, I find this to be insulting. This is an attack on common sense and an assault on the minds of our children. Please vote no on the HF13. Let's see.
Ms. Burkett, I think you're over 2 minutes. I would like to call on the other members of the audience, and if we have time, we'll come back to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I think someone over here, go ahead and come forward. And if the other people who want to testify, please just come down to the front row so we can save time walking up to the, please. Thank you for coming, and please state your name for the record.
Thank you so much, honorable members of the committee and the chairwoman. I'm speaking in opposition to this amendment, and I did sign up to speak.
Sorry, that's okay. Could you please
Susan
state your name for us?
Halverson.
Susan Halverson, did you
Yes.
say? Thank you, Ms. Halverson. Go ahead.
And I'm speaking as a concerned citizen, but more than anything, I hear a lot about men and women right now. I want to talk about gender and children. I'm a former teacher, retired now, teaching in the public schools. I'm also a very active member of the NEA, the National Education Association, which is run by the democratic process. But I'm very, very concerned with this issue of gender. I've been to many workshops over the years. I've been involved in this for 30 years. On both sides of the issue, and I am very concerned, and I want to tell you why. And I'm speaking for children. This says, Section 18, equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied on account of gender. No one's talking here about science or biological fact. That's completely left out. This is important. We're talking about children here. As we've already heard mentioned, gender is whatever you feel at the present time. No one can change his or her sex. The DNA in every cell in the body is imprinted male or female. And I did bring 2 documents from the American College of Pediatricians, which will back this up scientifically. I also hear surgery can't change a person's sex. Yes, you might be given hormone blockers and then given the opposite hormone. Does your own body produce that opposite hormone? No, it doesn't. You have to be injected with it. I also hear, well, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, or vice
Ms.
versa.
Halverson, it's been over
Wait,
2
wait.
minutes. Can you just quickly wrap it up, please?
I will, but that, I think we gave so much time to be in favor, and now we're giving very little time.
We did have opponents that were signed up that couldn't make it.
I did sign up.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
I'm on the list, yes. But I will hurry, it's not real long. And I hear them say, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, vice versa. That I don't deny that might be totally how they feel. But the proof shows that at 8 weeks gestation, 8 weeks in the womb, our brains are imprinted male or female. That's why we produce testosterone or estrogen. I just want to name some harms from this. Cross-sex hormones over a long period of time will lead to infertility. A lifetime of hormone treatments can also have profound psychological consequences, abnormalities of hormones, vascular complications, potential cancer, and other things. Just to make this a little shorter, I want to tell you, because I'm in the NEA, I'm a chair of a national caucus, and my goal is to get the facts out. scientific and research-based information to teachers on this topic, homosexuality and gender. This year, at the convention, I had a booth there for 6 days. I invite experts to come.